I've always said that allopathic doctors and the naturopathic doctors should be married in one office. That is the only way to beat this whole body medicine. In order to be an individual, in order to be true to ourselves, we have to be able to make our own decision.
It's mixing in a combination, like I said earlier, where they believe in prevention, health and wellness. Sometimes a drug is necessary to overcome, maybe a particular condition, but not maintain good health.
This past few weeks has been so exciting in the holistic and natural healthcare world. Welcome to Real Talk. I'm Siobhan Shaw, your host, and Real Talk is where we get real to heal. Tonight, we're diving into healing the nation, a new era in holistic health and wellness. And everybody on the show tonight is just buzzing with excitement about the possibilities for our healthcare in the United States and around the world, because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is taking center stage in health policy. And that's so exciting for people in holistic healthcare. Our guests tonight are all connected to the natural health world, and they live a healthy lifestyle. And we're going to dive into the exciting future of healthcare under the influence of RFK. I would now like to start to introduce our panel. We're going big tonight. I mean, a big panel. We usually only have 3 or 4. I'm going to start with Dr. Roni, because this new era, I believe that we're heading into, this holistic health and wellness focus from the US government, because RFK has been working in this area for so many years. He's been fighting for the health and well-being of the people in the United States and around the world. And Dr. Roni, how do you see RFK's healthcare vision reshaping the world of health and wellness in the United States and abroad?
Oh, this is a huge conversation. So, I've been in holistic integrative medicine, personalized medicine for over 30 years. And so this has been my wish for 30 years, right? And so as you must know, that when this happened, I says, yes, really yes, because we need this. Because one of the things that you always have to remember, 25 years ago, I was working in one of the most prominent hospitals in the country. And I was working on a serious unit called Rare Syndromes, Yale New Haven Hospital. I'll never forget. It taught me a lot about holistic medicine. It taught me, number one, get out of there, run as fast as you can. And so my grandmother came from holistic, 3rd grade education. Everything was her medicine. Food was her medicine. So what I saw in that hospital scared me so bad that I had to run. It was literally all about research and injections and chemicals and going through your vein. And I was the best IV nurse. I have to tell you, the best IV nurse in that hospital, which scared me even more. I had to keep putting IVs in babies. And then when I found out what was really going on, I took one day a big truck and I ran to California to start studying. So this for me addresses so many issues. And I think whole body medicine deserves to be at the top. And I've always said that allopathic doctors and the naturopathic doctors should be married in one office. That is the only way to beat this whole body medicine. In order to be an individual, in order to be true to ourselves, we have to be able to make our own decision. No one should make that decision for us. And so I'm hoping, Siobhan, that this is going to happen pretty soon, because we're counting the chemicals that they're putting in our food supply. When we get to the point where young people know that our food is toxic, kids are starting to say, well, you better not eat that, Johnny boy, because that's got a lot of chemicals. then that it's time to change, So who's going to change this? I believe he will. I believe Robert Kennedy will change this. I believe we need to follow him, and we need to understand that there is the only one way for wellness, and that's called personalized medicine, with the opportunity to choose for ourselves, with the opportunity to say that we as people are tired. We cannot take it anymore. The environment is toxic. The water's polluted. They got sick building syndromes. Who ever heard of living in a sick building syndrome and no one's doing anything about it? So you come out with cancer. Cancers used to be 1 out of every 10. Now it's like 1 out of every 3. I mean, kids are getting cancer. It's coming from our environment. I mean, he talks about this. Robert Kennedy talks about this a lot. And people weren't listening. I hope people start listening, because our lifestyle should be better than this. We should not be at 50 years old dropping dead of a heart attack or high cholesterol or cancer. There's so many chronic diseases. We know that those chronic diseases are coming from our environment, coming from our ultra processed food. We know this. So now we have the opportunities to stand together and change.
Well, and somebody who has probably been in the health business as long as you have is here tonight. And our audience doesn't know him, Dave Daughtrey. Dave, is it 40 years you've been in the health industry? Tell me about it.
I actually got involved in the health and wellness side of my industry back in 1990. It began when I was actually struggling with a condition, a digestive disorder that affects a lot of people, especially those in their late 20s, early 30s. And that kind of forced me to look at wellness, health and wellness, because when you don't have your health, it's the most important thing in your life. I mean, if you don't feel good, you're going to look for ways to help yourself feel good. And at the time, actually, I believe it was 1994, 30 years ago, was when Orrin Hatch sponsored the DSHEA Act. I don't know if you guys remember that. So really, it's been 30 years since we've had somebody that's as impactful. I think it's going to be more impactful with RFK Jr. I'm very excited about that. But it was Senator Orrin Hatch that sponsored that DSHEA Act, because I, at the time, struggling with my condition, was looking for something. I look, my personal philosophy, there's not a drug on the planet designed to maintain good health. That's not what they're for. They could prevent death sometimes. They're necessary for that. And great, that's what they're for. But to maintain good health, there's better ways than drugs and chemicals. And that's what RFK is talking about. And that's what I'm excited, because that's true. I mean, look at this whole country is sick, and it's the direction that we've been going. So I'm very excited about that. And yes, I was kind of forced into this direction because of the condition I struggled from. And it's now been 27 years that I have not had any problems, I should say symptoms, of the condition I struggled from, because I took my own health and wellness seriously and took control of it.
Gabriela, you're a mother. And I don't know if your kids have ever lied to you. Maybe they haven't. but do you like transparency in your family life, don't you? You like to know what's going on. And do you think that there should be more transparency in the public health system? And how important is personal choice? Dr. Roni talked about it earlier. So should we be more transparent? Are you excited that this might be something that comes with the RFK initiative, I guess you would call it?
Of course, I'm excited because, oh my gosh. In my early 30s, a doctor put me on statin drugs. I could not take them. They caused more damage. The first week, I just couldn't take them. doing my research as a mother, and I found that it was just not worth it. And also when my babies were little, in particular Brandon, the doctor, pediatrician, recommended I put my son on fluoridated water, okay, to strengthen his teeth. And I did give him fluoride water. And then I realized when I read about fluoride, how dangerous it is. And we do have fluoride in our city drinking water here in California. You know, these are things that we don't have any control over, and we have to get a good water filter system. We have to just do our homework. And every time I'm put on a drug, before I buy the prescription, I do look up any kind of side effects that may be associated with, I guess, severe side effects. One thing I do appreciate, you know, he's given us the choice as parents to vaccinate our children, okay? It's a parental choice. It shouldn't be put in the hands of someone else. And it is very sad. I do have two relatives right now that their child is over the age of 3, and they have been diagnosed with autism. And it's, I mean, I don't want to say how it happened, but we just have to be, as parents, do more homework before we allow a doctor to, you know, to do something to our child. And just be informed and make the right choices. That's what I do, and that's what Dave does. And actually, when Dave and I got married, we believed in this. I guess we didn't want our children vaccinated. Let me just say that we preferred not to. And you know, sweetie, do you have something to say?
I was just going to say, you know, to your comment there, you know, it's funny how doctors, we've kind of have been taught lately that doctors know everything. And okay, they're educated. I agree, they are. But if they knew everything, why would you be told to get a second opinion? You know, think about it. So the reality is that they don't. You know, and so what I'm excited about, I believe, is that what's happening now is that, look, there's enough scientific data available. Follow the science. You know, there's always going to be irresponsible people that just, you know, for whatever, you know, self-serving reasons, you know, might promote, you know, snake oils or whatever. But there's enough science today where somebody can actually do their own homework, and you don't have to go down to the library. It's just, there's access to so much information.
I don't want to forget Jay Michael. He's a special part of the group. We don't see him a lot, but he's the coolest dude. But Jay Michael, what changes are you hoping that this focus on natural health will bring, and which ones should be prioritized? Like what policies should be prioritized?
To answer your question, I actually think there's 3 things. He has a big agenda. And by the way, it's going to be an aggressive agenda. It's going to take time. It's not going to be easy because he's going to have opposition with the massive millions that the lobbyists have. But the 3, I think, Siobhan, number 1 is that he wants to ban pharmaceutical advertising directly to the public. Don't know if you know, but the United States and New Zealand are the only 2 countries on the planet that actually allow that. And I think if he can, in fact, get that banned to where you no longer see that on the TV shows that we see relentlessly. I can remember when it happened with the tobacco companies in 1970. They banned cigarette ads on TV, and I can remember watching those cigarette ads all night long on your primetime TV, and they banned cigarette ads and tobacco. in the United States in 1970. So I think that's number one. Number two, I think, and I don't know if this is prioritized in any way, but of the agenda I like to see is I think if he and the team that he's putting together can get the high glucose corn syrup out of our products and out of our beverages, out of our foods, out of our processed foods, that'll go a long way in helping the world. And number three, I think if he can work with the agricultural department and work on this regenerative of the soils, you know this, you're big into farms and starting farms and getting the pesticides and the chemicals out of our soil and regenerate our soil. I think those three things, I personally truly believe that if they can do that in the next 3 to 4 years during this time, I truly believe, and Dr. Roni, maybe you can back me up, or the other doctor, that will literally, and I'm no exaggeration, I literally will save millions of lives over the coming decade and decades, just with those three things. And there's other things that he has on the table that he wants to do. So thank you, Siobhan. Back to you.
Thank you, J. Michael. And let's look at those three things. Dr. Roni, let's start with getting high fructose syrup out of our food.
Just with that alone, that, we have to understand that, I talk about the high fives a lot, and that's why I developed these special kits around the high fives, is that every one of those conditions are created, number one, by high fructose corn syrup. We have no idea what the problem that we're having in our country because of that. And I used to have fights with the school teachers and the principals in the school because my kids are grown now, but you can imagine being a holistic doctor for over 30 years, what I had to go through to be at this point where I'm at today. And that was fighting and fighting and fighting. I'll never forget the day when all I put in the lunch basket was some salad and some greens, and I had some turnip rolled up and some carrot sticks, and I had all this healthy stuff, and I gave it to my daughter. And they wanted the social worker to come to my house. So the social worker came to my house and she wanted to look at my refrigerator. And because we didn't have like potato chips and tortillas and all of those things and roll-ups with the donuts and all of that and breads, she said that I wasn't feeding my child correctly. Because, remember the wheel that they were always going with the triangle, the breads and then it was the vegetables, and then it was the meat, and then it was the fruit, all of that stuff in one plate. And these kids were eating at school French fries and hot dogs and hamburgers and more French fries. So I got upset, and I specifically remember writing a letter to the school. And I did have some changes made. They gave them more salads and less pizza. But the point I'm trying to make is high fructose corn syrup creates disease. It creates obesity. It creates high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And many, many more things happen because of it. It's in everything. And I believe that we don't need that. But that's just one thing, Siobhan. That's just one thing. We have a huge battle here. We have a long way to go because I believe that some of the foods that we give our kids today is considered not edible foods. The thing that made me cry once was my nephew was going to college, and all they kept talking about was romaine noodles. And I may get in trouble for saying this on air, but that stuff is so toxic. It was romaine, and I literally got teared up. It's literally not food. And this is what's happening in our country. And they're making billions of dollars off of giving our kids non-edible foods. So high fructose corn syrup, yeah, that's big, but there's so much more.
What about food coloring? Because I know that Bobby Kennedy has talked about the food coloring is based on chemicals in the United States food system.
You know those M&Ms that people buy, those pretty colors of M&Ms? Okay, well, they had them at the bank once for our kids in a big bowl. First of all, the kids could just take them, and the dyes in those M&Ms cause neurological brain damage. Now, we're talking about kids here, right? So you can imagine the food dyes that's in those things. And there's just food dyes and everything. I remember we had one kid was taken to the hospital because they kept the mother, those Margie cherries that's so pretty in the color. the
The
cherry.
red cherries, yeah.
Oh yeah, the red cherries. I'll never forget it. The kid ate the whole thing and had to go to the hospital. We don't understand. Kids cannot take these chemicals in at a large dosage like that. So I believe that the dyes create brain toxicity, and we got to get the dyes out of the food. That's at the top.
All of you are parents on this panel. Are there any times that you can remember your children reacting to food that you've given them, or food that they've gotten from school or their friends' houses, their parents? Or do you have anything that stands out?
I can tell you one. My grandson is a prime example. He's 8 years old, and all his folks like to go to McDonald's. So he at the age of 2 and 3, when he's able to say, no, I don't eat that, they try to take him. And he was like, I don't eat that. And it was like, what kid doesn't eat McDonald's? You know? And it was like, what does he eat? He likes salads. He likes his vegetables, and they was like, and they wonder why they sick. And then he was telling them why they were sick, And as he got older, he still carries that on to this day. And he told one of his friends, he said, hey, his mom tried to take. He said, we don't eat that. I don't eat that because that you get food poisoning. Turn around, what happened? The little boy got food poisoning. So as a kid, you have to teach at a young age and show at a young age the good and bad, because that's where it starts, at a young age. And most people act like they forget the kids not the one go to the grocery store first and foremost. They the ones not paying the bills first and foremost. So it's what you bring in the house. So with him being 8 years old, and his mom also, when he was born, being a preemie, she already knew what to do to prepare his meals. You see, he didn't have chewing food. She pureed his things at that point, So it starts within the home, but you can't be afraid to introduce your kids to it, and think about what they're going to think. And trust me, they get hungry enough, they're going to eat it. They be like, I'm hungry. Well, there them berries right there. Them oranges right there. You don't give them an option. You don't give them an option because they do pay for it in the long run. That's why they call it ADHD and, all these labels they want to give our kids. And it's because of
a lot of these ADHD out that brought to my attention in the school system. When they started these kids out eating Cheerios, the Fruit Loops that had all those colors in it, and then they start giving them like chocolate milk, and then this orange juice, and the kids start acting crazy with all that sugar, right? They were like literally running around the room and everything. And then guess what happens after that? Now they're ADD, and now they get Ritalin. Okay, so that's what happens. They create the problem, then they have the drug ready to cure the problem after they create. You just take away the sugar, take away the high fructose corn syrup, and give them natural foods. Maybe we wouldn't have been giving them so much Ritalin.
Dr. Mund is right about, making sure that the food is, that you are the advocate for your child from day one. Now, I'm going to share that, as a mother, working single mother, at one point, with 2 teenage daughters and not having any time, working in retail, basically traveling to get to work, coming home. And I was trying to manage the health of my children, but time was of an essence. That's why I always talk about time is life, right? But the guilt that I have now as an adult, as a mother, right? Knowing that what I was feeding my children was detrimental to the long-term health, which explains a lot of their conditions that they have them dealing with, because we all know that if you gut health, and Dr. Romunda, you're the gut queen. If you don't have a healthy gut, it could also affect your brain and affect depression. And right now with our children, and I see it even, with all my extended family, all this depression right now there that we're going through, all this course that they're going through and their health concerns. I was guilty of this because of my, the fact that I was so busy and I wasn't able to I wasn't educated. That's why this is a mission right now for me. Feel Good, Share Good is about introducing to the fact that there is alternatives now, because now I'm educated, but I wasn't back then. I was so busy on the hamster wheel. I was just gotta get in, gotta go to work, gotta make sure the kid gets to daycare. They don't gotta get dropped off at a certain time. I gotta make sure the food's on the table. So where do we go? We go to the drive-thru. We don't think about exercising or what the kind of food. We just trust. So this is why it's nice to have the powers of be potentially thinking and helping us think and level setting us and going back to what we should be doing, which is giving ourselves the time to be educated and have the choice that's educated, not necessarily feel like we're so over invested with no time to think. So I feel guilty today. Imagine how we feel today, knowing what we've been feeding our children and why they're so sick and why they're so depressed. And that's hard for me, right? So I wish, I'm so proud that this may change, because then my children's children will have a healthier future.
You know, you talked about the snacks we have for our children and candy. And Dave told me the other day that chocolate contains heavy metals. Okay. Now there is chocolate. Your child can have chocolate as long as it's dark chocolate that contains polyphenols, which is excellent for our cells, for our body. They found studies where children had a heavy metal toxicity, and it was due to cooking your food in air fryers. Okay. So if you have an air fryer, get rid of it and get a glass air fryer. And we have one. My children bought me one for my Mother's Day, I believe.
The metal air fryers, right?
The metal air fryers are horrible because they contain metal and Teflon and also your pans that you cook in, if you have Teflon on them. So cast iron are good, and also ceramic. So keep that in mind. Do a little homework. Stainless steel pans are also great to cook with, but keep away from cooking with non-stick pans, because microwaves. Oh my gosh, we're going to have an overhaul, hopefully, of just things that are causing problems. And one more thing. Many people don't know this, but tattoos are horrible. They contain heavy metals, okay? And besides, even if you have a tattoo artist that uses natural inks, okay, inks do not belong in your body, okay? So no inks, no tattoos. If you have a tattoo, do not get it removed, okay? Do not get it removed, because just the overhaul of the removal will cause lymphoma, all right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm not a doctor, but I am very informed. So maybe Dr. Romunda or Dr. Roni can elaborate on what I just said.
Well, remember back in the day where the dentist, the best dentist in the world, would put mercury in your mouth, right? We had mercury fillings. And the one thing that we kept telling people as naturopaths is, you're already toxic with the mercury, but do not get the mercury taken out to your, what you just said, because now you're going to have an overload of mercury and your kidneys won't be able to handle it. So there's so many toxicities that we have in our body, and that's why we literally have to live on a detox. And that's why we're doing the detox all the time, is because aluminum, people don't realize if you cook all the time in aluminum pans, you're going to have aluminum. People don't understand that there's certain deodorants in the body that you put deodorants on, you have aluminum exposure. So with all these metals that we're being, in touch with on a daily basis, people don't have no problem at all putting all kinds of stuff on their skin, not understanding that the skin is your largest organ. So what do? Is we go get something toxic and we just rub it all over our body, not even understanding why we're doing that. So I think that, we can be here for days and days and days and list all the toxicities that we have in our environment that's creating cancer and all the other diseases. But I think I mentioned cancer a lot because people in some countries have no idea that just about every other person's going to get cancer in their lifetime in this country.
We've talked about transparency and toxins. And Jane Michael, what do you think? How do you think trust plays in on this? You were talking about the ads on television. And Dave, you can get in on this because you've been in this industry for a very long time. Why don't people trust integrative therapies and natural solutions, natural supplements, things like a miracle molecule from For Life.
I mean, personally, I just believe that I want to say an old paradigm. There's a paradigm shift happening. That's why where we live, Gabby and I, in San Diego, California area, you now see a lot of alternative medical doctors. You know, they have their medical license, but they practice alternatives. So it's mixing in a combination, like I said earlier, you know, where they believe in prevention, health and wellness. Sometimes a drug is necessary to overcome, you know, maybe a particular condition, but not maintain good health. And so I really, you know, I'm excited about that future. I'll never say we don't need doctors. We do need doctors, but I want to see a doctor know more about nutrition. When you think about it, when a doctor goes and gets their medical license, how much time do they even spend learning about nutrition? One day?
That's what they say.
Yeah.
You know, so
I'm sure people will research that.
Right.
so then you take, you know, and that's why sometimes I don't feel intimidated at all, but I find myself talking to doctors. I had a doctor on a call today earlier. He's in Brazil. It was with a group of Brazilians. Many of you know I speak Spanish and English and pretty good Portuguese. And, you know, in talking with him, we had this conversation, and a lot of people were listening in on it. There's still some doctors that think that natural medicine, we'll say, is quackery, you know, and that's just because that's how they were trained. And sometimes you only know what you know, if that's what they were taught. But I like the fact, and this is where I think where RFK comes in, it's the education.
That's
The
right.
way the old paradigm of being educated about the old way of medicine, I honestly believe is going to become a thing of the past. You can't deny the science. And that's one thing I do love about For Life, by the way. You look at our scientists, many of them have been with For Life for over 20 years now. I've been with the company, Gabby and I, for 27 years. And if you just follow the science and you can't deny it, and For Life, honestly, you know, they're a research company. Everything that they do goes through this rigorous process, you know, of you know, a concept through science of learning about something. The research side of For Life, I love. They've got their own FDA approved laboratories. They manufacture, you know, so for something to go from a concept to where we actually have it in our hands, it's a long process sometimes. It takes years of substantiation and validation, education. And that's what I love about For Life, is that, you know, you follow the science. There's data and scientific evidence that this product does what we say it does.